This is the 2026 Toyota Supra Final Edition. Yes, you heard that right. If you want a 5th gen Supra, this is your last chance. But should you? Today we're going to find out by going over the changes to the Final Edition inside and out. We'll make some people extremely angry by trying to fit a bike in the back. And last but not least, we'll take it out on the road to see how it drives compared to competitors like the Mustang and Corvette.
What's there to say about the looks of the Supra that haven't already been said? Yes, this is based on a BMW. What I'd be more curious about is what people think in terms of how this has aged. It's been out for several years now, but I think other than some fake vents, it still looks like a pretty good looking vehicle in this day and age. And here's what I will say. Everywhere you go, it turns heads. And it's not just the Renaissance red that is a bright red. You see it in here. It just looks like a classic sports car shape, and normies are interested in this. Everyone who's a car enthusiast already knows what this is, but still turning heads absolutely everywhere. Now, what does this get with the Final Edition that you can spot cosmetically over the regular? Well, you get these unique 19-inch blacked out wheels and the carbon fiber duckbill spoiler. That's pretty much it. What do you guys think? Did they do enough to differentiate the Final Edition? Leave a comment down below. Underneath this sort of clamshell style hood, we have a familiar face. This is the 6-cylinder B58 engine from BMW. No more 4 cylinders offered anymore, which they were doing for a while, strictly a 6-cylinder. And you know what? That's how it should be, because this engine is a peach. 382 horsepower and 368 pound-feet of torque is the rating power-wise, but those numbers mean absolutely nothing, because I promise you this thing makes more horsepower and torque than that. This is paired with a 8-speed, more traditional automatic transmission, no DCT or fancy transmission at that. It also has an active diff in the rear that can move power around. We'll have to see how those behave out on the road compared to, some of the competition. The other thing that we should talk about here is the fuel economy, which is actually pretty decent. 22 city, 29 highway, and actually I've been able to get those numbers relatively easily driving in a spirited manner, so it is a testament to how efficient this B58 really is. Before we get into the engine, what did they change mechanically with the Final Edition? Well, you are getting some upgraded brake hardware. These are larger rotors than you had previously, and you get a bunch of suspension tweaks, different anti-roll bar, different bushings that are a little bit stiffer. They've retuned the steering. They've retuned the electronic dampers. It's sort of nip and tuck, small changes here and there to this vehicle. You also get a upgraded chassis brace that should maybe help with turn-in. We'll have to see what those equate to out on the road. We're going to keep this interior segment short because, frankly, this hasn't changed a whole lot since I reviewed it 5 years ago. And also, it's pretty simple in here. That's okay, because this is a driver's car. Here's the cliff notes. Pretty usable interior, physical HVAC controls, a lot of physical controls, which is nice. You do have a screen here which has Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, which are wireless, which is nice. It's a small screen by today's standards, but in a sports car, it doesn't really bother me because it doesn't distract you from the driving experience. You get a digital gauge cluster, which is also pretty simple as well. The only complaints I really have in here are twofold, and nothing has changed since the last time I talked about this, but really the ingress egress. I'm 6'1", and I hit my head on this pillar every single time I get in. This was originally meant to be a convertible, a Z4 BMW, and I would assume on the Z4s, the ingress egress is just a little bit easier. To make this look cool, they've sort of dropped this pillar, and I just hit my head basically every time I get in and out. I have to fold in to get in. Kind of annoying, but maybe it's just a me problem.
One thing I forgot to add here is this car still has pretty bad wind buffeting, anything above 40 miles an hour. It was present when I initially reviewed it, and it's still true today.
Same thing with the seats. The headrest is not adjustable, okay? So the way this falls for me, it's very uncomfortable. I can't bring this headrest up, so this peak of the seat hits my head, it just pushes me forward. I don't fit in here very well. Other than that, it's like a very cockpit style seating. In a Mustang or even a Corvette, you feel like you have more room. This feels a little more purpose-built, which is either good or bad depending on how you look at it. And, you know, the build quality is good because it's BMW, although there's some piano black here, which I don't love, and some glossy, plasticky carbon fiber around the center console, which is also not something I love. But there's not a lot of storage in here, which you wouldn't exactly expect in a sports car, but, you know, very small amounts of drink space, and, you know, there's basically no storage here in the door. So other than that, it has a JBL sound system, which to me sounds a bit odd acoustically. I feel like I get a lot of noise behind my ear with this one speaker here. I've talked about the seats. They don't fit me that great, but they do hold you in well, other than the headrests, and they have lumbar support, which is nice. So bit of a mixed bag in here for me personally. I just say these things because it might fit you just fine. If you're maybe under 5'11", I would say. But, you know, you could fit in here. It's just a bit of a compromise getting in and out. But you could maybe say that a lot for a lot of sports cars. So before we take this thing for a drive, let's have some fun and try and throw a bike in the back.
So yeah, this is the test that no one asked for and means absolutely nothing, but I was curious, since the Supra is more of a hatchback style, if I could somehow fit my bike in the back. Turns out my eye measurements weren't even close. It's pretty much a problem in all dimensions, even with the front wheel off. Now, I don't think anyone expected a sports car to be able to do this, but I will say there is a pretty good amount of space back there, so you could use this as a daily driver for majority of your task, maybe even a Costco run. Just don't expect to be doing any camping back there. As always, if you enjoy the bike test and the rest of this content, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss future videos.
All right, time for a rip in the Supra. Oh, no traction. Oh boy. Woo! All right, the road is a little damp. This car is a handful in the dry, and there's some damp spots. So we're gonna be careful, but we're still gonna have a good time. I'm gonna put this into my customized sports setting, which of course you can adjust the damping, you can adjust the throttle response, the steering weight, all those things, which is typical for a sports car these days. What's interesting about this car is ultimately the fact that you have some really stiff competition. Think Corvette at this price point, over $70,000. Think Mustang Dark Horse. Both of those are just like legacy sports cars that have a ton of money that go into development, particularly the Corvette. I mean, it's like basically a supercar at this point, mid-engine. What sets this car apart is sort of the obvious, and why you buy it is really because you like tinkering and you like turbochargers. Those other cars are, you know, naturally aspirated V8s, which is fun and has an absolute place in the world. I love them. I own an old Mustang. Now, this is turbocharged goodness. Makes great turbo noises. You hear a blow-off valve, you hear the turbo spool. The noise inside is a bit odd though. There's a lot of noise coming through the speakers. It's a bit synthetic. Outside it actually sounds pretty good, I think. But the power band is ultimately what you're after, and once again the tinkering, right? You can tune this with just a ECU tune and gain like a ton of horsepower and torque. In the Corvette and the Mustang, you know, it's a lot harder to get power out of those naturally aspirated engines, at least cheap power. So that's a big part of the reason you're buying this. You're for the tunability, I guess you could say. And that's the funny part, right? The biggest part of the reason you're buying a Toyota is because it has a BMW engine, which is frankly a bit odd. But this engine is just fantastic. There's not enough good things that you can say about it. And they've proved to be relatively reliable as well, which I think is quite impressive. Now let's talk about the transmission. God, the shove that you get of torque is another differentiator compared to those naturally aspirated cars. It's 37 degrees, so it's telling me to be careful. The road might be a little spicy. Yes, I agree. But that push of torque that you get from a modern turbocharged engine in the mid-range is just something that you don't get in even the Corvette or Mustang that have V8s. It's just a different experience. But the transmission, 8-speed. Look, it's good. It's not the best transmission ever. It's not the worst by any means. I think the best thing you could say about it is that it's good for daily driving. It's quick enough to have fun with, but it's not a DCT in terms of like, if I put this into manual, the shifting is quick, especially quick for a traditional automatic, which this is, but it doesn't give you that sort of like, DCTs kind of give you that punch, right? They're a little more, they have a little more theater to them. This one is a little more smooth edge, which isn't necessarily the worst thing ever. And of course, the other part is you can get this in a manual, which is pretty great, considering the fact that this and I guess the Mustang are the only ones you could get a manual. Corvette, you can't get a manual. So that also kind of limits your choices. I mean, we could talk about even a Nissan Z, but this thing is way more buttoned down, and the engine, from a suspension standpoint, than the Z, and the engine is way better than what is in the Z. Oh yeah, we're starting to lose a little bit of traction. So let's talk about the suspension. I really like these adaptive dampers, or I should say electronically controlled dampers. You can obviously adjust how you want them to respond, and I pretty much always have them in comfort mode, even on a road like this, because it soaks up bumps so well. Compliance is so important to traction, and it doesn't beat you up. That said, upper tiers of the Dark Horse, the Corvette with the MR dampers, just like absolutely magical ride. It's in tough company. It's a great ride. It's just, is it the best in its category? No. And that's just because it has really stiff competition. What you have to say about this thing handling wise at the limit, as it like begins to snow, is that this car is a bit twitchy because of that insane amount of power, and this rear end just isn't that glued down. And I guess what you could say about it is it's incredibly fun and exciting in a scary kind of way. So it depends on what kind of car you like. If you're into something like a GTR, or you come from an STI or an Evo that's just like super, super buttoned down, this will feel frankly kind of terrifying, because yeah, it always wants to lose its, oh, I had it in manual, I'm just like redlining this thing. See, the shift after the red line, it's a bit slow. But anyway, the whole concept here is that this thing is twitchy. They've done some things to try and make that a little better. They've tuned the sway bars and the suspension a little bit here and there, but ultimately this thing just like, it wants to light up the rear tires. It snaps in an instant, so you got to be really, really careful driving this. And like I said, if that's what you're after, that might be a legitimate thing, right? Like, you want something that's a little hairy. The reason the Mustang doesn't do that, or even the Corvette for that matter, is they have much more linear power band. Obviously, the traction management on those cars is really good, and even like the weight distribution, of course, because of the Corvette, it has way better weight distribution thanks to a mid-engine setup. So once again, why do you buy this? You buy it because it's different. You see Mustangs everywhere, you see Corvettes everywhere. You do not see Supras all that much. They exist, don't get me wrong, but they're way less common. So you want to be different. You want to have the ability to tune this thing. You like turbochargers. And that's pretty much it. I mean, this price, once again, has gotten so expensive, it is in steep competition. And there's a place in the world for this vehicle, but I am curious what this looks like long term. I would personally buy it in a manual. Of course, if you're going to daily drive it, yeah, get an automatic. But I think the manuals will hold their value better. I don't think they made a whole ton of them comparatively, since it was, initially offered as an automatic. And manuals just hold their value better anyways. But I am curious how history will view this vehicle, being that it is a BMW underneath, but kind of a Toyota, like Toyota flares. I'm curious what this looks like long term. They've held their value decently well so far, which I think is kind of impressive. But either way, I am more curious what Toyota is going to do when they create their own Supra, which they are allegedly doing, and how it's going to compare and contrast to this. But it's still a really fun vehicle. And look, like I said, if you want to be different compared to the rest of the crowd, I could definitely see why people purchase these. Guys, if you made this far in the video, thank you very much, considering that like and subscribe button. And I'm going to tuck tail and head home because it's borderline snowing up here in the mountains and I'm on sticky summer tires. Peace.